Stairs on the side. And I know
You look pretty good.
chasing the 3-year-old.
Sandy, we're excused here. That was pretty good.
You're wild. We talked about Mike Scott's talked about driver's
Good evening.
Maybe.
I'd ask everybody to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then after we get a few moments of silence, those poor lost people in El Paso and Dayton, and also at home here on the passing of Joyce Gunch and her great lady for the city, and we're going to miss her terribly. So after we do the pledge, we're going to do a moment of silence for all of us. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just observe a moment.
Host.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll.
Saunders.
Here.
Rhodes.
Here.
Spinks. Here. Cochi.
Here.
Mezak.
Here.
Janutus.
Here.
Fluharty.
Here. Council, we have a bunch of minutes we have to approve, so bear with us here. You have the minutes of the work session of July 1st, 2019. Any corrections? Seeing none, motion for adoption by Mezak, second by Rhodes. Call the roll.
Saunders.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Abstain.
Spinks.
Yes.
Cochi.
Yes.
Mezak.
Yes.
Janutus.
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. And you have the minutes of the regular meeting of July 1st, 2019. Any corrections to that? Seeing none, a motion for acceptance by Spinks, second by Fluharty. Call the roll, please.
Saunders.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes. I'm sorry, abstain.
Spinks.
Yes.
Cochi.
Yes.
Mezak.
Yes.
Janutus.
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. You have the minutes of the special work session of July 8th, 2019. Any corrections to that? Seeing none, motion for acceptance by Mezak, second by Saunders. Call the roll.
Saunders.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Spinks.
Yes.
Cochi.
Yes.
Mezak.
Yes.
Janutus.
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. And you have the minutes of the special work sessions of July 11th, 2019. Corrections to that? Seeing none, motion for acceptance by Janutus, second by Spinks. Call the roll.
Saunders.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Spinks.
Yes.
Cochi.
Yes.
Mezak.
Yes.
Janutus.
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. And you have the minutes of the work session, the special work session of July 15th, 2019. Any corrections there? Seeing none, motion for acceptance by Mezak, second by Rhodes. Call the roll.
Saunders.
Yes.
Rhodes.
Yes.
Spinks.
Yes.
Cochi.
Yes.
Mezak.
Yes.
Janutus.
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. And the special work session of July 23rd, 2019. Any corrections there? A motion for acceptance by Spink, second by Fluharty. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Abstain.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. And you, finally, we have the minutes of the special work session of July 30th, 2019. Any corrections there? Seeing none, motion for acceptance by Saunders, second by Rhodes. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
I should have abstained on this one, not the one for the 23rd. Sorry.
It's okay, it still passes, so.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. Reports, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. A few items here today. Just wanted to give an update if everyone hasn't seen the Union Street project. The water line replacement has started. It's kind of a mess traffic-wise, so bear with us as far as access. There is a portion of it closed right at Broadway. So if you can avoid the area, that would be beneficial. This is, if you recall, we recently passed legislation to install a new water main from that area all the way down to the old St. Mary's area. It was important that we do that because that main was from the 30s, and we wanted to make that repair prior to the county coming in afterwards, which most likely it'll be into next year, beginning of next year, where the county will come in and they committed to resurfacing all of Union Street from Broadway all the way down just across Northfield. That project has started. If you've also seen, we have barrels out front. The Center Road project is moving into Bedford. We anticipate they'll be here August 8th this week, later this week. Signage has been up, and obviously there'll be traffic control in place. So this is the county program. It's not our program. It started all the way at the highway, made its way through Maple Heights, and is now going all the way just right before 5 Points. So that is taking place, and as far as timeline, I don't have that yet, but should have that for the next meeting. In addition, our service department, Sean Francis, is going to be going out this week marking walks. They're starting up on the hill, Councilman Fluharty's ward, in the area where some of the streets were recently or are recently being repaved. We'll be making markings where the sidewalk program, and those walks will be changed out by Cerna Construction. Letters will go out as well to all of the residents, and if you'd like to jump on board with that pricing and have additional repairs made at your expense, you can do so, and you can get the price that the city was actually able to get when we went out for formal bids. So those letters will go out, and they're only going out on the streets that we're currently working. Like I said, it's, we're only going to be able to do so much every year, and when we're on your street, that's when you'll receive the letters. But they're starting up in Councilman Fluharty's ward. In talking with the police, we are, if you recall, a few months back, we lost one of our canines, unfortunately. We are taking the necessary steps, first and foremost, getting back up to full staff, and we're very close to doing so. But we'll also be entering into a contract over the next month or so to purchase another canine. We want to do that soon. This way that unit will be back on patrol in the spring. And that'll allow us to have 2 canine units once again, and they'll actually be staggered as far as the shifts go to have as much coverage as possible. So we're taking the necessary steps to fill that. I wanted to just acknowledge and I guess send kudos to everyone that has had involvement, if it's the DBA or just residents or staff members here in Bedford that have helped with the Wanderlust production downtown. If you haven't had a chance to do that, it's been outstanding. It's brought a lot of people into town that haven't been in town before, patrons to some of the restaurants and establishments downtown, and it's just a really good fit. We hope that they do more. I think they are planning more, but if there's still, actually I think it's just wrapped up, but well done. I mean, that was a big plus for Bedford. I also want to thank all of our staff down at the pool and our playgrounds program. As far as how the summer has gone, our playgrounds wrapped up last week, and they did an outstanding job. Really, I'd like to say transform that program from years past and what they've done with the kids this year. Our staffing is tremendous on those that we brought on, and we hope to retain a majority of them. Lastly, I had a chance following one of our meetings to have a conversation. I know there was some concerns, and I put it in council's memo regarding the Colony Club. I had a chance to speak with the new management company, and they did acknowledge that they've had some challenges as far as with the turnover and the acquisition. But that management company is in direct communication with the ownership group, who is out of state. They're sending over all of the reports, if they're police reports or if there's property damage. What they're doing is they're trying to inform them as much as possible regarding some of those items. We are going to be having a follow-up meeting in, I believe it's late next week, to discuss where they're at with some of the changes. And those changes include, and they had mentioned, feel free to share it, they do plan on investing over $3 million to the facility, to the buildings. They're installing security cameras at the one pool in the party room. They had indicated that they are eliminating one of the other pools. There was a second pool that's going to be eliminated. It is going to be turned into a dog park for the residents. Part of the $3 million investment is going to include updates to the rooms, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floorings, new signage, and it also include a name change. So, first and foremost, though, they did acknowledge, they want to make sure that it's secure and safe, and they're going to continue to pass on the information if they have instances or incidents to the ownership group, and if other steps need to be taken, they assured us that they would. Internally, we're discussing it as well, but it was a positive conversation, and now I think we want to hold them to some of the things that they said to us on the phone, which is why we intend to have a follow-up conversation. End of report.
Thank you. Mr. Law Director.
Just wanted to concur with Mike in congratulating all of the employees for the great job they did this summer with the rec program, and otherwise, police, everybody is doing a great job of service. I also wanted to send my condolences out to Joyce Dawes and her family and friends. Other than that, end of the report.
Thank you. Mr. Finance Director.
Yeah, my thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Joyce Dawes. She was a great Bedford Rotarian, and we will miss her deeply. The city's also starting a budget process for 2020. Believe it or not, 2020 already coming up. So we'll be doing that in the beginning stages, going through by department, and getting that ready for next year. That's pretty much the end of my report.
Really good Labor Day. We won't see you until after.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders.
First off, I want to give my condolences to the Donch family myself. Ironically, I spent an hour and a half at her kitchen table just less than 2 weeks ago with her. She was a fixture in this community. I told her son, who I was talking to this afternoon, that she's back with my mother gardening again, because the two of them used to do it all the time. So hopefully the family will get over this. But the services are at St. John's on Friday afternoon, so Friday afternoon and evening. So if anybody wants to go there, it'll be in the paper here either tomorrow or Wednesday. Center Road construction, which half of it, well, at least almost half of it's in my ward, is going to be a mess. So stay off that road if you can. They may be maintaining one-way traffic, but I worked on that road 25 years ago, and there was no way we could maintain one-way traffic back then. I doubt very likely if they're going to be able to maintain one-way traffic now. because I used to work for the county engineer's office. So that's going to be a big mess, and the best bet is to go around it. Some of the residents that are on Center Road, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get in and out of your driveways too. And let's hope our fire department that they will allow them to get through when they have to. But it's going to be a mess, but you got to look at the end product. The end product will make this thoroughfare really nice. And then next year when the county does Union, that one will look just as good too. And we just keep on moving from main road to main road, hopefully. Later in the agenda, you will see that we're applying for a grant for trees. I know one of the biggest complaints in the city has been the fact that we're cutting down an awful lot of trees. Personally, it's been several hundred and we've got several more to go. This grant will allow us, hopefully, if we get it, to start replacing these trees. So let's hope for the best so that we can get back to what we used to have, canopied streets in this town that were really nice. Unfortunately, first it was the emerald ash that wiped this out, and we replaced all the not emerald ash, the elm trees. And then we replaced them all with ash trees, and now 30 years later they're gone. So hopefully we can find decent trees and we can get that put back together. Got one concern from the neighborhood. The house that's on the corner of Woodrow and Johnson, it's a rental, I believe. The owner's out of town. If anybody's been around long enough, it was Jerry Miser's old house, who was a former councilman from Ward 6. That house is being let go. It's a mess. So, in fact, I think the tree lawn, once again, is piled up with branches and stuff too, which have been there for most of the month. So if we can look into that, that would be good. And one last thing, do our service department go around and check catch basins? We have a number of catch basins around this town that are completely filled with dirt and growing grass out of them. I would hope that we get those taken care of before winter, if we can. They're all over the place. So, thank you. Have a good evening.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who stopped out for our First Friday this past week. It was a good success. Every one of our First Fridays continues to get a little bit bigger, so we're very excited. Our next First Friday will be September 6th. It's a movie night. We'll be watching Wizard of Oz. This is put on in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Department here in Bedford City. So it should be a lot of fun. Before the movie starts, we'll be doing chalk art, and we have a sea shanty group singing for us, I believe. So come on down and have some fun on our First Fridays. The Bedford Downtown Alliance continues to look for volunteers. We have our volunteer meeting on August 28th at 7 p.m. at Bedford Falls Cafe. We'd love to see anybody who would like to help come in and give us a hand. And this next part, I'm not going to be able to get through without crying, and I apologize. I want to send out my condolences to the family of Joyce Daunch. Joyce was a huge influence in my life. As a matter of fact, I would not be sitting here had it not been for Joyce. And she will be greatly missed. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Spinks.
Thanks, Heather, for my condolences to the family of Joyce Dodds as well. Was honored to serve with her on the Art and Culture Board. Was honored to serve and work with her the Garden Bedford Club. She also was a big supporter for me when I decided to run for council. So our city will miss her. She brought a lot of stuff to our city from other places. She was very detrimental on bringing the Celebration of Art Weekend of Puka, which is very dear to me. I'm now honored to be the chair of it. So she will be very missed on all the stuff that she brought from her city. So my condolences to her family.
On a happier note, my husband had the pleasure of going to the Wanderlust thing last night, and I wish I would have went. I hurt my back, 4th of July, the parade. I wish it was something fun, and I had a good story that I picked up something too heavy and then jumped out of the Jeep thinking I was 16 again, and I'm not. So I tore a muscle in my lower back. So Bob went and said it was amazing. It was so much, and it's been so good for our cities, good for the Bedford Historical Society, showcase some of our big gyms down there, our church, the Dunham House. So it's people that are not from around here got to come see that. So that was really good. So that was exciting. I know they are having a part 2 and part 3 will be coming. So kudos to everybody that helped out to make that possible. That was a big asset to our city. Mike, I know with Center Road coming up, I'm a little concerned because we have so much traffic that speeds through on Grand using that as a cutaway, and I know that that's going to be a big problem. I know we've talked about it before. So if we could just special attention to that. Also, kudos to Mike, the city, for helping me. 188 Greencroft finally came down after years and years. I thought it was going to fall down on its own. It didn't. And so it finally came down, and it takes a long process to get that done. So that's going to be an empty lot, and hopefully something could be done about that. Tickets on sale, talking about the Celebration Art Weekend. Good tickets are on sale now for our big event this year, the September the 13th this year. The theme is art, music, dance, and food from around the world. And the Friday night kicks off with a French theme, Cirque du Bedford. So if you want tickets, it's like a Cirque du Soleil performance. It'll be under the big tent downtown. Very excited about that. So if you want tickets, you can see me. It benefits the Bedford Historical Society. End of report.
Thank you. This is Mezek.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, nice to see everybody here again tonight. Also, I'm going to add to my condolences to the Donch family. I go back a long way with Joyce from high school and junior high. A couple of our children went to school together, and we've always been friends. She was a great supporter. She was involved in a lot of things. You turn around and you see Joyce at everything. And I do always hold her very high because when her husband was alive, he was another great person, offered me a large screen for the visually impaired. And they brought it down to me, and I brought it home. And my husband tried to use it, but it was too big of a magnification, so we took the Donch screen and passed it on to another, Mrs. Schumann at the time. And we will not say thank you enough for them helping us and other visually impaired families with this screen to watch TV and do things for a visually impaired person. Secondly, Mike Malice did mention that Colony Clubs is offering this big list of to-dos, and they will. The main thing I would like to do for our residents of Colony Club, I know there's many there, but even a select group would be to meet with not just the lady that runs the office, because we're not too happy with her, but with management from Michigan that bought this Colony Clubs group. If we could arrange that, I'd be more than happy to attend to air a few differences and a few improvements to their residents if we could. I have another thing on my list. We have a new, not a new gas station. Our Sunoco dealership went down, and now the Sunoco management is making it into a new place called Hop In, which could be like a gas and go situation, and it's coming along but moving rather slowly. And finally, I would like to also say, during the night, the visitors from other places that come to Bedford, please know anybody or seen it, ask them to keep the litter either in their car or put it in the trash receptacle. Because our town, we've been going through it quite a bit now. Littering has become the new thing of the week or the day. There's too many people that are carelessly becoming irresponsible and no respect for our neighborhood, our neighbors, and our city. And we gotta stop it. And I've discussed it with Mike, and I hope we can do something good and turn it into a positive. Thank you, and your report.
Thank you. Mr. Janus.
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Fluharty.
Thank you. Mike, that speed camera that we got over on Paul Street, it still isn't working as of Saturday night.
Actually, it was up for, I got the report, I'll have it in the memo, it was up, PD said it was up for about a week, and they had various data, so I'll share that in this week's memo.
So it doesn't flash
So
what your speed is?
It tracks everything, and we get a printout.
Oh, okay.
It'll detail, how many people were over the speed limit, different percentages, I'll share that. It was over on Archer, then we moved it to Paul, and it'll be moving over to another area, I think over on Broadway, correct? So I'll have that for you later this week.
I've gone by there a few times and I never could find it working. Okay, it's good reason. Also, I want to thank Michelle here next to me. She's a lady that when I call in for grass cutting or any other situation, she takes care of it. She just sends me an email back, says I'm on it. That's all I have to get from her because she takes care of it. So thanks, Michelle. Your grass cutting up there has been taken care of very well. And I'm trying to think what else I had to report. Oh, that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I want to offer our condolences to the Dodge family. She was a great friend to my wife and I. Truly missed by this city. It's been such a time of tragedy. A week and a half ago, I got to go down to the Dayton area for the National League of Cities, the first-year suburbs council, which I sit on as a past chair. And we visited the destruction from the tornadoes that went through there on Memorial Day evening. 14 tornadoes hit that area. It just looks like the place was bombed. This is a couple months later, and there's still houses that are just nothing but a pile of sticks. It was amazing, and I got to sit with the people from Trotwood, which is a suburb of Dayton, and they gave us a pretty extensive report on how they handled the emergency and all that, what went right, what went wrong, and I'm going to get a copy of their final report, and then I'll sit down with our safety forces and maybe point out some things that we might not have, or things that worked well, which I think will be good, because actually having an emergency and using their disaster plan, most of it worked well, and that's good news. But fortunately, well, not fortunately, but they did have only one death out of 14 tornadoes. Just unheard of to have that many. And then on top of it, to have this nonsense going on with these people with the guns. It's just unbelievable. We have to do something. I hope the president sticks to his word, what he said this morning, getting to the bottom of this stuff. With that, let's get on to business. Ordinance number 9707-19.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Terrace Construction for Tinkers Creek Commerce Park / Art of Beauty water line replacement, being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension by Saunders, second by Rhodes. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochi,
Yes.
Mezak,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Spinks, second by Fluharty. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project, the city is required to provide adequate flow and at the right-of-way for, obviously, our businesses. Art of Beauty, looking at potential expansion, it would not, water at the street would not provide the adequate amount of flow based on future plans. So it was our intention to go out to bid and secure this. Our engineer provided us a quote, or an estimate of $176,000. We received 2 bids. The one bid was from SET Inc. for $268,663, and the second bid was with Terrace Construction for $171,350 and change. It's our recommendation to go forward with Terrace. We can move as quickly as possible to provide that. It'll actually tie in at Hemisphere and go along the right-of-way in front of that business on Egbert, and then any future tie-ins would be up to the business.
That'll help future development in that area too. Excuse me. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Ordinance number 9708-19.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Arcadius US Inc. to conduct a water rate study and cost of service evaluation and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension, Spinks, second by Fluharty. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks, Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
No.
Fluharty.
Yes. Motion for third and final, Saunders, second by Mezek. Again,
Thank you.
This contract's with Arcadis US. It's an international company that specializes in water rate studies. There's very few of them. They've done work in Alliance, Ohio. They've done work with Dayton. The company would be doing a study to make sure the rates are fair and equitable with various structure of how we build, especially with businesses and the water lines and so forth. They're going to make sure also that if we ever do business incentives with some major businesses coming in with substantial uses of water, the city has their profit percentage proper and in regards to making, again, those fair and equitable incentives. So we're having those studied. They haven't been done since the early 90s, and it's time to do those once again. That's council to see everybody on that.
thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
No.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Ordinance number 9709-19.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Simplex IT for the purchase and installation of new computers, including software, and declaring an emergency.
A motion for suspension by Fluharty, second by Janutus. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Saunders, second by Mezek. Mike, excuse me, Frank.
Simplex IT is the company we've been using for our IT processing in the city. We got quotes for them regarding hardware, software, and to be compliant with the January deadline for Windows 7, to update to that, and to the, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, Windows 10 and Office 16. We need to have everybody switched over to those programs and get all of our software packages up to that speed. So I was council look favorably on this to get that finished and completed.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Ordinance number 9710-19.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of one quantum pumper from Finley Fire Equipment Company and declaring an emergency.
I have a motion for suspension by Mezek, second by Saunders. On the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Spinks, second by Janutus. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll kind of give a brief synopsis of this in the next one. We've been looking at this as council members. We spoke about this last year as well as during the budget time. This is equipment that obviously, it's been in our plan to look at. It's basically when is the right timing to do something like this. And we're fortunate enough, I think, to be in a position to start having those conversations now. The reason it's on the agenda tonight, and both of these items are through state purchasing to assure the lowest number, but they take an extensive amount of time to build. A pumper is anywhere from 9 to 11 months. A squad is at least 6 months. We do not have to pay for that until arrival. We did look at if there was any type of discount for prepayment. There is not for a squad. For a pumper, there is minimal, but you have to pay all of it up front. It makes sense to, it doesn't make financial sense to do so. What we'll be looking to do is, and Frank is working on this and has been for some time, is doing a note for the short term, which we'll be looking at doing that note in December. For the short-term period, as I said, to cover the cost of these two items. Over the next couple of years, we're also going to be looking at, based on the results of our wastewater treatment plant and our renewal with the EPA, we're going to have to commit to spending some significant capital down at the plant. It's something that we know we're going to be doing. It'll be at that time is when we would go out and issue debt and bonds. And what we would do is we would take potential future improvements at the plant, we would combine them with this, and then you would do the bond at that point. To issue debt, it's going to cost you at least $125,000, most likely $150,000 just to do that. It doesn't make sense to do that on an item that's less than $1 million. So from a funding standpoint, that's how we would fund this. It would cost the city, these two pieces of these two vehicles, it will cost the city about $100,000 annually. That'll come out of the general fund, and that's for 10 years. Obviously, the goal is that they would last longer than 10 years, but you can only borrow for 10 years on these two pieces of equipment. Our pumper, and kudos to our fire department, our mechanics, they do a great job in maintaining that equipment. You know, for instance, our ladder, for those of you that don't know, is a 1992. I bet most of us wouldn't believe that it is that old. But the two pieces that we are going to be replacing would be the Horton would be a new squad that will be replacing a 2000, and then our pumper that we will be replacing is a 2006. Now we do have two pumpers, the engines. One of them is a 96 and one of them is a 2006. I hope I'm not jinxing ourselves, but the 96 is a Pearson. It has been a tank, and obviously I rely on the department and the mechanics. It's been outstanding for us. The newer one is an E1, and we have not had the luck that we've had with that. That is the one that, based on recommendations, is what we would be replacing. The goal tonight is to go ahead and have authorization to place the order. Like I said, it takes a significant amount of time to build, and we wouldn't have to pay for that until we receive those two pieces, or those two vehicles. So we have a plan in place as far as the funding. Like I said, a lot of it has to do with timing. Rates are low. It makes sense. Obviously, Frank has done his homework, and you know, those guys do a great job over there. And I think it's great that we're getting to the point where we can start looking at these pieces of equipment and replacements that we've known we've needed to look at, and now we're finally there. So definitely will help them and our community.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks, Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes. Ordinance number 9711-19.
Authorizing the purchase of one Horton 623 Type 1 emergency medical vehicle from Horton Emergency Vehicles Company and declaring an emergency for the reasons he just told you.
Motion for suspension. Spinks, second by Fluharty. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Motion for third and final. Saunders, second by Mezek. And we heard the explanation. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks? Yes. Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Ordinance number 9712-19.
Authorizing and directing the city manager to prepare specifications and advertise for bids as recommended by Guide Studio, Inc. for the city's signage and wayfinding program and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension by Rhodes, second by Saunders. Call roll.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
A motion for third and final by Spinks, second by Janutus. Mike?
Thanks, Mayor. If you recall, we have worked with Guide Studio. Earlier this year, council passed legislation allowing us to contract with them, and we've designed various new signage, new gateway signs, secondary signs, wayfinding signage. Obviously, that whole program isn't something that we're looking to do all in 1 year. This is going to most likely be a multiple year or multiple grants project. We already have, we received a $50,000 grant to start this project, and we also have, if you recall, or those that don't know, on Center Road, there was a gateway sign, the brick sign near the medical building that was hit by a vehicle, and we did, I believe we received about $17,000, $19,000 in insurance to replace that. We haven't replaced it yet because we've been working through this plan. We've also did have a business owner that came from historic district that gave some input as far as locations, and it's our intention now of taking that roughly $75,000 and going out to bid to start with the gateway signs and what we can accomplish. Obviously, we'll do more as funding allows, but we are doing all of it through grants.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Ordinance number 9713-19.
An ordinance to levy assessments for Bedford's false alarms ordinance in the city of Bedford and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension by Rhodes, second by Mizek. Call the roll.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Spinks, second by Fluharty. Mike, why don't you take, or Frank, take the next
Yeah,
three.
the false alarms, the grass cutting and water bills are related. The false alarms are those, of course, that the police department had to deal with that were more than just one time. They actually, as time occurred, I believe it's the third time they don't bill out on that. The grass cutting, of course, that's with all the properties that we had to go out and cut and send our grass cutting, trimming of the yard and so forth to make it right. But those that were given notices ahead of time didn't cut their grass, therefore there's the fee for that and assessment. And as for delinquent water bills, it's pretty self-explanatory. The water bills haven't been paid, those are the amounts outstanding. Certified, that could be twice a year. And the grass cutting and false alarms are only assessed once a year.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Ordinance number 9714-19.
To levy assessments for grass cutting on various lots in the city during the year 2019 and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension by Spinks, second by Fluharty. Call the roll.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Motion for third and final. Mizek, second by Rhodes. And we heard the explanation. Call the roll, please.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Ordinance number 9715-19.
Levy assessments for delinquent water bills in the city and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension by Rhodes, second by Mizek. Call the roll.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Spinks?
Yes.
Cochee?
Yes.
Mizek?
Yes.
Janutus?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Spinks, second by Fluharty. And we had the explanation. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mezak,
Yes.
Janutus,
No.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Ordinance number 9716-19.
Amending ordinance number 9653-18, making additional appropriations for current expenses of the city of Bedford during the year 2019 and declaring an emergency.
Motion for suspension. Spinks, second by Fluharty. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mezak,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Mezak, second by Saunders. Frank?
The appropriations, the following major changes were done in regards to the department. Law department, we should be, instead of personal services, other, and that is associated to a case that we're required to pay out by the judgment. What we did have was a lot of costs and a lot of revenue that we generated from the forfeitures and confiscations from drug busts. And in regards to that, you'll see a $647,000 that we did collect in regards to that has to be reappropriated. That was last year's money and this year's money. And then we just reappropriated that out through the SEAL narcotics department. The grants funds, we had some money come in for safe passages, our EMS grant and juvenile diversion, we're allowing those funds to be spent. Also, we started Forbes Road study with some engineering costs. We also had to increase the cost associated to the 2018 road program and the 2019 program and adjust that for engineering and final cost of construction. We also budgeted today in line with our ordinance, the Union Street water line, which is $1,256,000. We're allowing the expenditure of that from council's approval of that ordinance last month, and also the Union Street engineering at $95,000. That's the end of what I have there on the appropriation changes, catching up on all the projects and the grants.
And you might point out, though, that $647,000 for SEAL is not all our money.
Correct. I wish that would be the case. We allocated our portion to the SEAL fund, but sometimes we do confiscations in line with the Marshal's Office and the FBI and other agencies that we do share the proceeds. The proceeds come in, then we distribute them out after the court has rendered their judgments on the cases.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mezak,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Resolution number 2538-19.
Authorizing the city manager to apply and accept a grant through Cuyahoga County pursuant to its Healthy Urban Tree Canopy Grant Program and declaring an emergency.
Need a motion for suspension by Fluharty, second by Spinks. Call the roll.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochee,
Yes.
Mezak,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Motion for third and final by Saunders, second by Mezak. Mike?
Thanks, Mayor. Cuyahoga County recently released a grant to provide funding for planting. If you recall, we actually took this out of our budget roughly in 2006. We would go around, and when a tree was removed, we would actually purchase and plant a new one. And that hasn't been done in some time. Jennifer did a great job, put together the grant. Clint and Sean helped her, obviously, with a lot of the specifics. I think we have a very good chance of getting the funding. What it will entail is, we applied for just under the max, so we applied for about $40,000, and it'll cover the cost of purchasing and planting 100 trees. Right now, we're looking at the areas of Green Cliff, Broome, Bell, Cork Hill, High, McKinley, Satin, Shawnee. A lot of the areas where the trees were removed, the ash were removed. We want to take advantage of the funding and start planting again. So I like our chances. We should hear pretty soon. And if we do, part of this ordinance you saw was allowing us to accept it as well. If we are awarded, we would like to tackle half of that this year, and then we would do the rest into next year. And then obviously the plan is that this funding source will continue to be made available, and it is our intention to keep applying every year for it as long as it is available.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Saunders,
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes.
Spinks,
Yes.
Cochi,
Yes.
Mizek,
Yes.
Janutus,
Yes.
Fluharty.
Yes.
Now comes that portion of the hearing of citizens. If you wish to speak, please come forward, state your name, your address, and your comment.
Young man first.
Bill Astless, 685 Archer Road, Bedford. I've had incidents probably twice a week where people running red lights, twice on Northville Road, once at Columbus and at Forbes. I was sitting stopped at the red light, and cars in the lane next to me just go right on through. And yesterday, my wife and I were driving down, we turned off in Northville out of Union, going up to Broadway. A Jeep pulled out in front of us at Hartsville there, and they were 2 houses from the intersection when the light turned red. Had to be going, I was behind the head going at least 40 miles an hour, just right through the red light. I've never been a proponent of these cameras, but I think we should put some red light cameras around the city. It's becoming a real problem. And stop signs too, they just go right through stop signs like they're right in there.
See that all the time.
And also I'd like to point out, the Bedford Lions Club is having a second annual night at the races. And September 7th, I have tickets here if anybody's interested, and we're also open for donations for Chinese raffle. So if anybody's interested, you can see me over here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the Lions Club?
The Lions Club, yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melvin Cook, and I live at 678 Turning Road, Apartment 4, Colony Club. First off, I want to say to you that I was walking around, dogs pooping in the pool. I told them about it. They said didn't no dog poop in the pool, but I saw it. Also, the pool be closed with kids climbing over the fence after hours. That's every night. Also, I have a drug thing that's at 311 number 3, drugs are sold.
Mark, why don't we talk afterwards about those specifics, if you don't mind.
All right. Okay, well, I'll tell you how I want to talk to you anyway, okay? And the young lady there, Sandra, yes, I want to say something to her, private.
Yeah, there's a microphone.
No, you don't get up to me.
The first, anyone else?
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm jealous now.
Gentleman is finished. Nancy Lachowski, 197 Wendell. I just wanted to ask Mike and Wally also if they've done any progress getting the outfit that did the planting on, on the corner of Henry and Northfield, the communications work that they did. Is that what it is, Wally? Was the... Not Wally, Victor.
Right.
No, with Victor, I meant.
Yeah, it's really Victor.
I meant
I know what you're talking about.
the property next to Sharon's house.
Right.
Well, okay.
That pile has been there for for way over a month, even though we've had all that water. The water is gone, and they had promised her when they were there that, well, as soon as they were finished, they were gonna level all that. And she was away for a couple of weeks. She come back and it's still there, that big pile.
Councilman Fluharty brought that to my attention on Thursday, and I spoke to the building department, and they did reach out to them first thing Friday morning, so that should be addressed very soon.
Yeah, I know, because we came by there and it was still there, on the weekend, so I thought I'd bring it up to see.
Vic had seen it and passed it along, and we took the necessary steps. Hopefully they get that leveled soon.
Yeah. Okay, and planted grass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tina Strati at 51 Elm Street. So thank you guys very much for everything you're doing. Things are on a positive upswing. We've seen some positive changes, and the grass is getting cut more consistently, and the Bedford baseball days, that is a big plus. My son and I, one of us, we dressed up in the 1930s and went to Wanderlust last night. Spoke with people from Lyndhurst and other communities that were just excited and said, we never knew that this is what Bedford is like, and we were, giving all the hurrahs because we love Bedford. I'm wondering if there's any way we could kind of highlight our assets. I know that the square is beautifully kept up and just looks stunning, and then outside here with the, seems like the unifying theme of the pink and white New Guinean patients and the petunias. Different people come into the pool quite a bit, and our pool is just gorgeous, but outside it looks a little bit like a barracks. It's once you get in, it's like, yes. So I was wondering if there was any way that possibly some of the kids from the swim team and some of the coaches could have like a car wash, and then possibly do a little bit of landscaping out. There's those 2 big beds that are empty, and then if the city could maybe bring the unifying next year, those, just not as much as you guys have, but just to unify and go like, yes, we do belong. This is another part of Bedford that we feel proud of, and just, I think it would give the children also a sense of, you don't just swim here, you do things, and there's some upkeep and a sense of pride and responsibility. And also with the recent events, there was talk of possible cameras that might be going in by the pool, that we feel that would be a very good thing. So thank you guys, and good job, and yes, we love Bedford. God still has a plan for Bedford.
Thank you.
My name is Leonette Johnson. It's my husband Gary Johnson, we're residents of 28 Cresswell. And first of all, we want to thank you and the police department, because they've been ticketing the cars that try and stay overnight between 3 and 6. So thank you, Sandy Spinks. We see the little orange ticket. And people have not been doing that as much. However, we do have a couple of issues which Paula spoke about with the litter all over the place, because our empty lot next door to 21 Cresswell that the land bank keeps so nicely cut ends up as a trash receptacle for all the other people in the neighborhood. So that's a big issue on Cresswell right now. And then we had a couple of questions. When you have a business where you're a tow truck driver, are you allowed to park your tow truck with the attached vehicle on the city street and in the driveway?
Overnight?
You can't impede you can't block the walkway.
No, they're just parking in their own driveway. I assume it's a private tow truck driver, because he brings the truck home, and some nights he'll bring a car attached to it, and he parks in his driveway. Okay. I just didn't know if it's legal, that's fine. I didn't know if there was an ordinance about that or not.
I have to look into that and check.
And then one other thing,
The other thing is, where our street is, we have that top, Elmer Flick field, where there's a little the kiddie park
Yes.
over there. Heavenly Kids Daycare, which is actually a daycare at Maple Heights, are they permitted to bring their children there?
I mean, it's a public park.
Okay, so it doesn't matter that they're not necessarily residents of the city? Okay.
Yeah, it's a public park, so.
Oh, okay, we were just wondering, because that's the first time we ever saw somebody from that, within Bedford,
Yeah,
going there.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, it was a little unusual to us,
Yeah.
because we've seen a lot of other people use it, and that's fine, but when we saw, then I know where it's in Maple Heights, I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I didn't know they were allowed to use ours. Okay, but thank you.
anyone else? Seeing none, motion for adjournment by Saunders, second by Rhodes. Call the roll, please.
Saunders?
Yes.
Rhodes?
Yes.
Saints?
Yes.
Cochi?
Yes.
Eva?
Yes.
Nunes?
Yes.
Fluharty?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.
I will.